I don't think there is enough inclusion of Black people in fashion. And it is because I think it's a twofold issue. One,
Mhm,
it's an access issue, um,
mhm.
not
Definitely.
understanding how to even get your foot in the door. And
Mhm,
then also, two, when you're there, I think too many of us, I've gone to many a fashion week. I've been invited, we've been there for work and whatnot. And I see too many of us come to that space trying to get close to celebrities or get our jump off rather
mhm,
than being willing to do the work. Like, I think
mhm.
a lot of people think that fashion is much easier than it is. It's not just runway shows, it's not just, oh, I designed this. It's a business. And I think
Right.
a lot of people are not thinking about that. And I think that's a big reason we don't have a lot of Black representation.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nails and Beauty Talk, the Style Crypt. I am your host, Asia the Bird. Today, we have a very special guest with us today. He is accessories enthusiast. Please welcome Dr. Zay Clark. Hello, Dr.
Hey,
Zay, and how are
everybody.
you?
I'm doing good. Welcome, everybody.
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad to have you. I want to go ahead and really get started by asking where you're originally from and tell us a little about your upbringing, where you're from, and especially your school experience.
Yeah, so I'm from a small town right outside of Austin, Texas, called Smithville, Texas.
Hmm.
We have a population of 4,171 people, I think.
Wow.
We were really small, but also
Hmm.
we were very, people don't like to talk about it, but we're
Hmm.
segregated. It was a very
Right.
segregated town. We
Mm.
had a train track that divided the town.
Oh,
And on
wow.
one side, it was the white side of town, which quote unquote we called it. And then on the other side was the black side of town.
Hmm.
And so grew up there, did all of my schooling from grade school through there.
Hmm.
Um, Education was a really big thing in my family. My
Right.
mom was the salutatorian of her class, but she was
Right.
supposed to be the valedictorian, but
Right.
there's some drama around that we just don't talk about.
Right. Right.
However, both of my grandparents with education, my grandma will tell you she has a PhD in the streets, and what she means by that is she had to learn how to fend for herself at a really early age. She has a ninth grade education, and she met my grandfather and became an army wife at the age
Mm.
of 16.
Okay.
And so she lived all over the world and raised my mother and them across seas. They didn't move back to the US until they got in high school. And
Mhm.
so with me, they always were like, "Hey, education is your thing. That's your one job. We're not gonna make you get a job in high school, but your job is
Mhm.
school." And I
Right.
understood that from a
Mhm.
young age. And so I once I graduated high school, I graduated fifth in my class in high school.
Oh, wow.
And then I went to the University of Texas at Austin, automatic admissions, and did political communication with a minor in African diaspora studies and sign language. Um,
Mm.
I focused on sign language because I damaged my ear using the Beats headphones when I was younger, trying to be
Yeah.
too cool for everybody. So,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
I thought it was important to learn from an intersectional lens what is the existence of people who
Right.
are hearing impaired and or deaf. And so
Mhm.
after that, after I graduated, I moved to Virginia, where I went to George Mason University, and I
Okay.
did my master's in public administration with a focus on emergency management and homeland security.
Mhm.
Um, and then I did my stayed at George Mason, but went to a different department and did
Oh,
my
okay.
PhD in strategic health and organizational communication.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. Now, as far as, like, with Homeland Security, what attracted you as far as studying Homeland Security?
Yeah, so to be honest, I realized there wasn't a lot of people that looked like me,
Mhm.
or I
Right.
thought, or they were coming at it from a military standpoint, and I don't have
Right.
a military background.
Mhm.
But to be honest, what drew me actually was the emergency management part of it.
Okay.
My original goal was to become an emergency manager, and
Okay.
then I took the government route after that.
Okay. Yeah, that's really, really cool. I want to get into as far as the next question. So you are a DEIA expert and organizational behaviorist. So what also attracted you to those career paths specifically?
Yeah, so during my time in federal service, I was doing other things, and I started to realize that when I was working in nonprofits, when I was working in government education, I started to realize a pattern that the employees, we always talk about leadership and we always
Right,
talk about employee health, but we also don't talk about how the organization itself might just be unhealthy
right,
and how that impacts the work. So I started doing DEI work. I was always leading employee resource groups and different things. All the
right.
way back to 2017, but I started to do the actual work after George Floyd was murdered.
Mhm.
And I just saw how my agency was putting that work on one person, and I said, "Nah, we're not about to be performative about this."
Right.
I
Absolutely.
stepped up and then started doing that work.
Absolutely, most definitely. So, what were like your earliest memories in regards to fashion and style?
Ooh, um, right when you said that, my great grandmother popped into my mind. Um, Her name is Dorothy Nolan, and we called her Miss Dorothy,
Mhm.
and or mommy, and she she was just style. Like that's just what she was. She was
Right.
always dressed to the nines.
Mhm.
And I think the important thing I really always tell people about that is she also was suffering from schizophrenia. Um,
Mm.
and
Wow.
so, but my grandmother, great grandmother, always looked amazing. Doesn't matter if she was having a really bad day. Didn't matter if she was working out in the yard pulling some weeds. She looked just divine, and it made me realize that it doesn't matter how you show up in the world, but the way that you dress does matter because it
Right.
tells everything you need to know about somebody,
Right.
face value at least when you first see them. And I think we take that for granted a lot of times. And I think especially with her having schizophrenia, people treated her differently. But when they would
Mm.
see how she was dressed, they would say, well, this woman does have money or something. And we're like, they would associate that, okay, she is suffering from a mental illness. However, she is still someone of worthy of respect. And your
Right.
clothing shouldn't dictate that. But it's what reminded me and showed me that from a young age.
Yeah, and the thing is with fashion and style, it is so ingrained into, us as black people for centuries. We've always wore fashion as a sense of not only as a sense of dignity, but also as a sense of definitely a sense of activism, stand up for what's right and things like that. You know what I mean? Look at the Black Panthers Party, what they wore and what they represented. And, you think about like Angelina Talley, he was presentable, wherever he went. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was polished, and that's something that he really preached about was polish, 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 polish. And when he talked about where he got his style from, he learned from his grandmother. And
Mhm.
the thing is that that's the thing that's so very cool and very sophisticated and classy is how in the church alone you dress to the nines, whether it's a good
Yeah.
suit, church hat, it was like a fashion show just in that environment. So it's just like within our history, with black history, especially here in America, dress and fashion was always something that helped us express how we were feeling and what was going on in the world.
Mhm. And yeah, I agree. And I think it also was a way for us to remember ourselves.
Right,
So much was taken from us in the transatlantic slave trade
right,
and through the diaspora that clothing and our religion and our bodies and hoodoo and voodoo and different things were the only things that we got to hold on to.
right,
And I think that's why fashion to me will always be political,
right.
but it also will
Agreed.
always be something that is also highly healing,
Absolutely,
because it does something to you when you show up as your best self. When
absolutely,
you feel nice, when you feel smell good, when you put that bag on or those heels on or whatever, it really changes the emotion and how people not just see you, but also how they interact with you and
absolutely.
how you yourself take up space.
Yeah, absolutely, totally, most definitely. I absolutely agree with that. I want to get into as far as just your fashion style and aesthetic. So, if you had to describe your fashion style, how would you describe
Edgy elegance.
it? Okay.
I've always said that since I moved to the DC area. I think a lot of people with me I'm a gender nonconforming person. So one
Mhm,
minute you might see me dressed how I am right now in a polo, or you might see me dressed to the nines in something very feminine
mhm,
or very free. And I think it's so funny for threads. A lot of times people don't know my gender, and it doesn't bother me because I don't care what pronoun you use for me, but it's very fascinating that amount of people that assume I am a biological woman. And it
mhm,
is because I navigate the world with a feminine and masculine energy. And
mhm,
when I say edgy elegance, that's exactly what I mean. I want you to
mhm.
understand that you can get this country work, but at the same time,
Right.
I want you to see that there's something so soft and tender and beautiful
Mhm,
about the way that I come up, that you feel safe, that you feel that you can talk to me, but also that you must also know how to handle me as a
mhm.
person because I am precious cargo.
Yeah, absolutely, most definitely. And I love like, with your presence is not only, showing like knowledge and education, but it's also, that dignified, sense of like, pride in yourself. And especially, you want to show that with how you dress, you know what I mean? And, and it's something very interesting, especially with style, like, how even with like women, like they play with the feminine and masculine and things like that.
Mhm.
That's something that I kind of like to play with, like the style, like the bucket hats and
Yeah.
I get very inspired by, how men dress, especially suits. Like I love a man in a suit, especially like military style, the tailoring
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
how detailing, a suit can be. You know what I mean? Especially I love haute couture style as well, like Scaparelli,
Mhm.
also like different black designers like, I really love different black designers that really are expressive and things like that, like Laquan Smith.
Mhm.
He's like the black Versace. He's like the black version of Versace. That sexiness, but also you get like an elegance from Christopher John Rogers, and or
Mhm.
Sergio Hudson. So I like how not only with how we dress, mixing with that feminine and masculine, but also too I like how with different designers, especially black designers, they play with that too.
Mhm. And I love that you bring that up because, and it might sound heavy to some people listening, but I love that they do that. And I think when you brought up Christopher John Rogers, I really thought about that is I love what he has created because it
Hmm.
pushes back on, in a lot of ways, white supremacy ideals.
Right.
There are a lot of the things and the ways that we dressed is because a white person told us we had to dress that way,
Right.
or
Hmm.
it was also a means of survival.
Right.
And I think
Definitely.
sometimes we don't boil it down to the base roots of it.
Right.
And
Hmm.
for me, the reason I show up the way I do, I was tired of playing somebody else's game when I've done too much work to have to ask anybody's permission to take up space in the square footage I'm allowed to be in.
Absolutely. Definitely. And be yourself as well. I think that's very,
Mhm.
very important. Us as black people is being ourselves and expressing ourselves how we want to express ourselves. And definitely how we dressed. It was because of like how you said, white supremacy and racism. And the
Mhm.
thing is also too with style, like people are so gravitated towards hip hop and R&B and things like that hood thug aesthetic type of thing,
Mhm.
And the thing is that what other groups don't understand or don't really try to understand is that there are many facets to being black. It's not what you see in the media, but the
Mhm.
media pushes that the most where we're these negative things, we're hood and ghetto and stuff like that. And the thing
Mhm.
is, and it's so crazy because a lot of these other groups are inspired by us, from how we dress to how we talk to how we wear our nails. You know what I mean? When black women wore their nails, it was seen as ghetto. But when
Yep.
someone else does it, besides, the opposite of somebody black, then it's trendy, it's the hot style. Like say with hairstyles. It was
Mhm.
nappy or whatever. And then when someone white wears braids or whatever, it's trendy.
Yep. Mhm. It puts our bodies and the things that we do as costumes.
Yeah.
Um, I think a great example of that, I think I can see my grandma doing this to my little cousins right now, taking some Vaseline after they took a shower and putting it all over them. And it was that TikTok trend of people being like, "Oh, I'm slugging." You mean you putting Vaseline on your face? Like, we've been doing that. Like, that's nothing new, and that's actually
Right.
why I do the type of research I do,
Hmm.
is to show that the spaces that we as Black people try to enter
Right.
only often operate the ways they do because we are paying for it to be that way, but it's
Absolutely.
still abusing us. And luxury is a great example of that. People will naturally police a Black person walking into a luxury store. But when it comes to luxury accessories in the United States, Black people are the highest market in that.
Yeah.
We don't
Next
buy them
Christina.
as much ready to wear, but we buy the bags, we buy the shoes, we buy the belts, the perfume. And I think
Mhm.
that is where we as Black people also have to understand our power and positionality when it comes to fashion. That it's not just
Absolutely.
something you put on, it's something you also dictate.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely, most definitely. And we're the reason as to why these brands get really huge. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
A lot of these fashion brands, it's because of us. You know what I mean? These brands wouldn't be big as they are if it weren't for us, especially with, celebrities and influencers who are non black. They wouldn't be where they are if it was for black culture, some sort of
Hmm.
way. You know what I mean? Some form of fashion. And that's the entire thing with that. People love our style, and a lot of different fashion styles come from black America, you know
Hmm.
what I mean, and things like that. So that's in with the nail industry. Like, I'm in the nail industry, and the thing is with a lot of the nail trends, like whether it's the curved nails or duck nails, like different styles, like the long curved stiletto or something like that. You know, with the different designs, it was something that we made mainstream. You know what I mean? And we made popular. But like I said again, it was seen as ghetto. If
Yep.
somebody else wear it, it's the total opposite. But definitely, I definitely agree with what you're saying. It's understanding our power and understanding to really also continue to create our own spaces where we can represent us and celebrate us.
Yep. I couldn't agree more with you. I think that's exactly what we need to be doing.
Yeah, absolutely, most definitely. So I want to get into as far as just with handbags. So me and my mom love handbags. We're huge fans of like handbags. I love backpacks also. I want to really ask this question as far as handbags. So how did your love for handbags come about?
Hmm. So you met me after I used to actually be called the professor of purses on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I used to focus on and everything. And my love of bags actually started when I was doing speech and debate in college.
Mm,
Um,
okay.
we the girls on our team, or femi presenting people on the team, had bags and we're going to tournaments. But the guys, we were walking around with these like ugly, like techie looking briefcases, and I was like,
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
me." So
Right. Yeah.
me and my friend Taryn stopped at the Coach outlet in San Marcos, Texas, and I'll never
Hmm.
forget this day. We walked into the store, and I'm a little broke college kid. Mom ain't giving me a lot of money right now. I'm just trying to make it.
Right.
And
Hmm.
we go in the store, and we're both like, we're gonna leave with a bag. And so we go to the men's section, and there's these briefcases.
Hmm.
And the briefcase I saw was this, and I have this bag to this day. It was this cognac brown bag,
Hmm.
and I was like, "Oh wow, I want that bag." And I was like, it had said $1,200 on it. I was like, "Oh, I can't afford that." The sales associate came over and was like, "Hey, I see you looking at this bag. It's actually 50% off." And I was like, it's $600 still. I can't afford that." And they're like, "But also it's another 40% off today." And I was like, "Oh, it's still a little much," because it was like, I think they're like 300 at that point.
Hmm.
And they said, "I want you to take care of the bag. So what this is the last one we have, so I can also mark it down another 20%." The bag came out to be like $180. Um,
Wow.
and I bought the bag, and that became like my monicum because I've always been a person that puts my bag in the crook of my arm.
Hmm.
When I was at tournaments, people were like, "Oh, that's Xavier." They were like, "Oh, that's Zay." They could just see me because of the crook of the arm. And I just started falling in love with how leather and bags of silhouettes looked on people's bodies.
Right.
And I started to deconstruct it as a girly thing. I used to go into stores and be like, "I can't look at a bag because like that's gay or
Yeah.
that's what women do." And I
Right.
started looking at
Mhm.
it as it's a piece of leather that you put things in. It is a utility device.
Right.
And once I had that shift in my mindset and started looking at it as wearable art, I just turned into what I am now. And I
Mhm.
think I don't think there's been a single day in the last 8 years that I haven't had a bag with me of some sort.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Now, how many bags do you have, like, by any chance, if you don't mind me asking? Like, handbags?
Ah, I'm working on me. The Lord is working on me. Um, I will say at one point it was about 750.
Woo!
Uh,
Wow.
I have significantly reduced my collection.
Mhm.
I think I have about 300, but a lot of them are in storage. I just for like collecting, I just keep them in like an archive.
Yeah.
But the bags in my apartment, I would say I probably have about 80 and like with me, like on person.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I have, like, way, way less of handbags. But I also wanna ask you this question, do you have any, like, handbags, based off of, like, black designers, like, Brandon Blackwood or.
Yeah, actually on my coffee table, I have a Brandon Blackwood bag, the end systemic racism bag. And I look at
Mhm,
that bag every day before I go to work and everything. Um, I also have the Protect Black Women bag. I
mhm.
have a lot of Black designers or even luxury bags that Black designers did collaborations on.
Mm.
So yes. Mhm.
Yeah, that's really, really amazing. I wanna get into as far as the award show. So you had your own award show where you showcased and awarded the best handbags. So what was the
Mhm.
whole decision behind having your own, like, purse award show?
Yeah, so a lot of my platform used to be around educating Black people about luxury and handbags. I feel like that's
Mhm.
a thing that we just don't get. I got a little
Right,
exhausted because it was a lot of work and plus my schedule and things. I'm getting
right,
back into it. But what made me start doing the reviews and doing the awards show was because I think there is so much buzz around bags at times that we
yeah,
have trends, but nobody is saying why that bag is the one we're saying is the best bag of the year.
right,
I think the same thing happens in fragrances and shoes at the same in heels. But I was like, hey, on my page, people come to me as an expert in handbags. Why not me just put out here who I think did the best this year,
right. Mhm,
and people were seeing it, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." So I'm bringing
mhm.
that back this year, but I've started a
Cool.
new series called Birkins and Bags, where I'm reviewing books and handbags at similar times and how they can connect with each other.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. And the thing with handbags, I really liked about during the time of what happened with George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement at that time, like how he was talking about with Brandon Blackwood, you know what I
Mhm,
mean? And he made that end systemic racism. That bag went viral, you know what I mean? And then I think Telfar did the
mhm.
no, it was Sites. They did protect black women
Yep.
and all the different phrases and things like that. And I really liked how with handbags, this wasn't in the white owned brands. This is more of the black owned brands where they started adding different phrases that really, really could connect to the black community. And that's something I really liked of what
Mhm.
they did at that time.
No, I agree because I think it was really showing who was doing the work. I
Right.
think the only thing I didn't like about that time period when it came to bags were people who the Kim Kardashians of the world, who we
Right.
now know are MAGA,
Yeah.
choosing to get the bag and being like, "Look, I support this," and
Yeah.
using it as virtue signaling rather than actually showing up for the movement. And I
Right.
think that is the only time I get a little weary of those type of things because they then allow someone to buy a piece and think that's the end of their activism or the end of the way that they show up for a movement, rather than having to sometimes put their thoughts, their bodies, and their mindsets on the line.
Yeah, absolutely, most definitely, and I totally agree with that. Like, it's very performative. It's
Hmm.
performative. That's all that essentially is. Like with Kim Kardashian and the Kardashian Jenner family, they've always benefited from Black American culture. They've always exploited it all the
Hmm.
time. And the thing that really didn't make sense, I think there was something from the 15% pledge. They had this 15% pledge gala, so it's celebrating
Hmm.
like Black owned businesses and things like that. I think it was like this year or last year, and they invited Kim Kardashian. I was kind of like, okay, why is she there? You know what I mean? So it's
Hmm.
kind of like we have to be mindful of who we invite in our spaces,
Mhm.
especially those who really don't mean well and who are about using the black community or being performative and acting like they're down with us when they're really not.
Correct. I agree. I think it's I don't consider that gatekeeping. I call that strategic protection,
Yeah,
to make sure that we are not everybody gets a handout to the cookout. Like I think that is
right,
a bad thing that we have started to do as a community is try
right.
to save everyone when nobody is trying to save us.
Yeah, absolutely, most definitely. That's definitely the thing. So, if you had a top 5 list of your favorite handbags, what would they be, and what would you style each of them with?
Oh, this is a hard question. I think number one, I already know that one off the top of my head. Peekaboo Fendi is my favorite silhouette of any bag. I
Mhm,
think that is one of the most perfectly made bags ever.
mhm,
And for me, what that would go with style wise, especially if it's just a black one or a cognac color one, something simple, just some shorts and a t-shirt, nothing too much. Let the
right.
bag speak for itself.
Yeah.
I think that's what a peekaboo does well. It can be the center while you take a break. Um, my
Mhm.
other one would be a Lady Delight Dior. I have
Mm,
never really been a Lady Dior person. I like the artsy collection where they do the like only 100 pieces in the world. But I think the Delight, when they took it to a more canvas way, was such a
mm,
stunning bag.
right.
And I think that's a bag for evening or when you're going on an international trip. So
Mm,
when you're styling that with resort wear, you're styling that with cocktail wear,
mm,
so that you
mhm,
have a formal presence with that type of bag. Well, that without
right,
it being too dainty. I think the
right.
Lady Dior goes too dainty, too feminine, whereas this one, a man, a woman, anyone could be using it. Um,
Mhm,
my number three, I think the Birkin and the Kelly are played out. I think they are,
mhm,
if you got one, you got one, and that's great. But I think the Constance, which used to be a quota bag for Hermes, is
mm,
such a beautiful bag. It's not the biggest bag, but if you're a person just doing errands or on the go or need something that you want to just feel special when you wear it, that is a great bag for
mm,
you. And
mhm,
I think that one is great for shockingly workout wear, or if you're a
mm,
woman or person who
okay.
wears dresses, a like summer maxi dress. Just crossbodying it or even putting it under the arm
Mhm,
and keeping it moving. Um, the number 4 for me would be, and I would never say this in the past, but I would say it now, is the new Pharrell, Louis Vuitton, Speedy, the new ones that are, like, really slouchy and really,
mm.
soft, the ones he just came out with, not the original Speedy. I'm not a fan. Not you can keep that.
Right, right.
But the new ones that he came out with, I think being fully leather
Mhm,
add something that just is I saw one in person, when I was in New York at, Hudson Yards, and my jaw
mhm,
literally almost broke because it was such a soft, yet and supple, yet beautiful bag, and I think the thing that you would wear with that, I wanna see you in some J's. I wanna see you with a snapback
mm,
on or a head wrap that's down to your feet, and you just know that you are that person, period.
mhm,
Um, and then the last bag for me that I think is really special is the Loewe puzzle bag.
mm.
And now that they've moved on to the Loewe Edge, the puzzle bags are harder to find. So it's actually a more rare bag now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And they used to do the way the puzzle was put together was only one or a few pieces of leather put together to look like a puzzle, but it looks
Mm,
like it is some separate pieces of leather, and that's not true. And
mm,
the puzzle
okay.
bag, I think, is great just for I actually think is a great work bag. And the reason I say work and that, it's like for your laptop or anything like that, but with you going to the office with business wear, it just looks really classy.
Mhm,
So if you need to be able to wear it to a lunch you're going to or going out for drinks after with work, it will go well with anything.
mm. Yeah, that's really, really amazing. I wanna get into as far as thrifting. So, there's more people getting into, like, thrifting and things like that. I've done a little bit of thrifting, thrift shopping, and things of that nature. So, for anyone who wants to thrift, like, what would be some of your tips as far as thrifting?
Mm. first and foremost, a tip is remembering why thrifting exists. Thrifting is not for overconsumption. I think too many people go thrifting thinking, "Oh, it's gonna be a cheap haul for me." Haul culture gotta go. We
Yeah.
don't do like that's not why we do thrifting. Um, so that's one. Two, uh, every time you go buy something, you need to donate something.
Mhm.
If you're going to go buy a bag of clothes, what did you get rid of or put out back into the world for somebody else to use?
Right.
Um, and what I do, it's a tip that I always do. I always fill my basket up and I go to a corner of the store by myself and I go back through it and I do a cost benefit analysis of every piece.
Mm.
And I create a budget going in. So if I say I'm
Mhm.
spending $50, we're spending $50. It,
Right.
can go over a little bit, fluctuate because money, but like you try to stay as close to your budget as possible so that you're
Mhm.
not over consuming. Very big in sustainability. And I think that, especially for people that look like us, we don't understand why sustainability is as important as it is because we want to look fashionable. We're not
Right.
realizing that you're also can be harmful in the style that you have.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's definitely understanding like with thrift shops and when you go thrift shopping, it's not like you get everything. Like for me, when I go thrift shopping, like I look at some pieces that catch my eye and things like that. What is like a pair of jeans that I could like design or something like that or wear, or like a jacket or something. Yeah, it's definitely something that you don't just like thrift and just grab clothes and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I want to get into as far as just with, activism and inclusion. So you're big into activism and inclusion. So especially in the world of fashion. So what is your perspective of inclusivity and diversity in fashion? And do you think there's enough black representation in the fashion world?
I'll start with the second part of the question. I don't think there is enough inclusion of Black people in fashion. And it is because I think it's a twofold issue. One,
Hmm.
it's an access issue, um,
Hmm.
not
Definitely.
understanding how to even get your foot in the door. And
Hmm.
then also, two, when you're there, I think too many of us, I've gone to many a fashion week. I've been invited, we've been there for work and whatnot. And I see too many of us come to that space trying to get close to celebrities or get our jump off rather
Hmm.
than being willing to do the work. Like, I think
Hmm.
a lot of people think that fashion is much easier than it is. It's not just runway shows, it's not just, oh, I designed this. It's a business. And I think
Right.
a lot of people are not thinking about that. And I think that's a big reason we don't have a lot of Black representation
Hmm.
in fashion is because we're ill equipped coming in. And the other side of it is
Right.
we don't know how to get in. Um,
Hmm.
and then when you talk about inclusion and activism in like just fashion in general,
Hmm.
I think that it's really important because I'm writing a book right now called "We Are the Luxury: Unmasking Corporatized Racism in Retail."
Hmm.
And it is a book detailing 21 Black women's experiences in luxury fashion.
Hmm.
And we articulate through their stories like why this industry needs to develop and academia needs to develop because we don't realize that it's not a
Hmm.
mundane thing. I
Right.
really argue that if I see something racist or homophobic or transphobic or fatphobic happening in fashion, happening in a retail store, then obviously it's happening in other places.
Right.
If the place where I'm going to just buy a basic necessity clothing or spend money, or and lots of it sometimes, and you can treat me poorly there, what could you do behind a business, behind me
Right.
badging in, behind me being pulled over for
Right.
at a police stop? It speaks to a larger institutional and systematic issue that I think we take for granted, and that's why I really am using fashion as my vehicle. Is because if I can show you that it happens in fashion, I can almost for certain prove that it is happening in other places.
Yeah, 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 definitely. It happens in other industries, not just fashion. It's also in beauty too, with
Hmm.
racism and white supremacy in the beauty and nail industry. And the thing is also too, like I like how you said that when we get into these industries, especially with fashion, we're ill equipped. So the thing is that like we don't not only have we don't have access to capital, but also too is also just the lack of I think it's more so the financial and business aspect of things. And I remember going to art school. I went to Savannah College of Art and Design in Savannah, Georgia. And the thing was that like we learned a lot of art stuff than it was the
Hmm.
financial and business side of things. Like we learned the basics, but it wasn't to a depth of where it gets you prepared for the real world for business. So a lot of stuff you have to really learn on your own. So that's kind of the thing. So it you're taught in these universities like in terms of like getting a job or internship. It's not to a point where you want to have your own business. And if you want to have your own business, you pretty much are on your own as far as learning the ins and outs of business. So definitely that's something that us as a black community can offer is just like, more of teaching each other financial literacy in fashion or in beauty and things of that nature. And so that way we're more equipped to jump into those spaces.
Yeah, I'm actually work with an organization named Fashion for All Foundation based in New York, and I'm the executive director of community learning and strategy for the AMLO Summer Intensive Program. And we
Mm,
actually do that. That is, it's an 8-week intensive program where we have fellows go through. And it is to do that unlearning and that transformation so that somebody understands, yes, I went to FIT or I went to Parsons or I went to SCAD, but
hmm.
often that institution, because it is centered in whiteness, is
Right,
only teaching you the bare minimum to keep the
right,
machine going, rather
right,
than it actually teaching you how to be the leader of a space or be valuable and know how to
right.
have a voice in that space.
Absolutely. I want to get into as far as ballroom culture. So, what is your perspective as far as ballroom culture and how the LGBTQ community impacted the fashion and beauty industry in your perspective?
Oh, most of this wouldn't be here without LGBTQ people
Hmm.
and ball culture. I think a lot of the things that you see, and I think it's even in the aesthetic of fashion, the word choices we're using, the ooh, or people sitting at a fashion show clicking and clapping
Right.
and wearing
Mhm.
shades. That comes from ball culture. That comes from somebody paying attention and reading someone down without even saying a word. And I think that is something that takes is taken for granted in a lot of cases in the fashion industry,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to Black people. Is a lot of times we minimize that history because a lot of
Mhm.
us don't know the history
Right.
because a lot of times it's centered in heteronormativity, and there's a lot of people that are like, oh well, blackness in the church, and just there are a lot of different things that are compounding that
Right.
hide that discussion. But
Right.
people aren't excited to realize that sometimes that dress you're wearing was made by a gay person's hands,
Mhm.
and you wouldn't have those things without that community. And so when
Mhm.
you ask that, I think we owe so much
Mhm.
to this to the LGBTQ community and ball culture that just really gets overlooked.
Yeah, absolutely, most definitely. Now, I want to get into as far as politically. So, what is your take as far as the current state of the world in regards to Black people?
Hmm. So I won't say it politically, as I am still a federal employee and do not want a Hatch Act violation. Uh, However,
Yeah.
I can say the world right now does not surprise me.
Hmm.
And I think since, 2020, everybody has acted very brand new.
Yeah.
And we have acted like we did not know that America had racist underpinnings, that Black people were going through it, that equity wasn't actually happening, and that merit-based things were not actually happening.
Right.
Um, And now we have an individual that is in power who is just showing. I don't all the time blame him for what the world is doing. He is just giving people the ability to do what they wanted to do.
Hmm.
And so I think there is
Right.
something to be said about, you know, Black people not always exhausting ourselves to educate everybody.
Right.
I think I don't know if you've even really noticed it with my threads lately. It's not that I've been trying to be mean or short with people. It's just that I don't always have the emotional bandwidth or
Mhm.
the capital at that moment to teach you something you can Google. And I think it's so funny to me. It's like I think it's a great example of this. I don't know if you saw my threads this morning. I got very upset about Ironheart coming out last night.
Mm.
And people I noticed that the only people last night that were live tweeting or like live threading, even live tweeting, whatever, about it were Black and femmy people.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, if this was WandaVision, if this was Agatha all along, y'all would be all over it.
Mhm.
And so what is the difference? And reason I bring that up, it speaks to that political and cultural question you just asked is like we're not always seen as important until we're educating somebody about something, making
Mhm.
somebody feel good about something,
Right.
or creating something for them that they can take credit for and say that they did.
Right. Mhm.
Mm,
Yeah, yeah, and the thing also too with and one thing also too, I like how you brought up the point where we get tired of explaining what we go through in terms of the state of the world, even here in America. Like how you said, the person in power is telling you like how how they truly feel, and what they're
mhm.
doing. You know what I'm saying? And the thing is that even with just in the beauty and nail industry, the whole thing is, especially in the nail industry, what's not talked about is the racism against black nail
Mhm.
artists and nail techs, nail pros in the industry, and how we're treated and tokenized and underpaid or not paid at all. You know what I mean? And so it's really, it can be really exhausting to have to explain and stuff like that. But also too, I think the reason why we shed so much light is because it's just the power of social media. Like the more of us talk about it, the more it sheds light on and things like that. And there are other people besides black who talk about it, and
Mhm.
it's definitely also at the same time sometimes you would kind of eye them because like, okay, is this genuine or is this like performative, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so because there are people that like how we said earlier, they'll speak up about something when it's convenient or when it benefits them, or they'll buy something when it benefits. And I feel like to me, definitely where people love our culture and love to exploit it but don't they can care less about our blues.
Yep, they care less about us, and
Yeah.
I think that's why I put in my bio on Threads is my job is to show people you are enough, and
Mhm.
I think there's something to be said that I think people think I'm coming at them sometimes, or I'm like, "White
Yeah.
people need to do better." Mm-mm. When I put those type of posts out into the world, the reason I do that is to help you look inwardly to see if you are a part of the problem, you know someone that's a part of the problem, or you might have a solution. And I
Right.
think that is and when people actually comment and have a dialogue, that's what I want. I want you to feel I'm a critical scholar. That is what I do. I love breaking down systems and institutions and making you feel uncomfortable. That is my job.
Yeah, yeah.
And and so I think there is something special though when I see someone have that aha moment. But don't turn into well, I did it. I voted. I did these things. I don't care about all that. If you
Right,
did the good work, you don't need a cookie for it.
right.
I need you to now see what I said or we said and go apply it to day
Yeah,
or
physical life.
send the thread to somebody that needs to hear it. You
Right,
don't need to comment and say that you did something. Send it to the person that might not have done something.
right. Mhm. Yeah, absolutely, most definitely. Now, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years from now?
Oh, 5 years from now, hopefully I will be an executive in a vice president or a director role at a Fortune 500 company.
Mm,
That is a goal for me. I will also still be doing the pop culture lab at George Mason University.
alright.
And we'll have a couple more books out.
Alright, that's absolutely incredible. Now, last but not least, where can people find you on social media and how can people support you?
Yes, the best way to find me on social media is at Dr. Clark, both on Instagram and Threads. But also, you can support me by checking out my company, Accessory Insights, at
Mhm.
www.accessoryinsights.com.
That's absolutely incredible. Now, tell us more about Accessory Insights a little bit.
Yeah, so Accessory Insights is my learning and development and people and culture company.
Mhm.
So I do consulting work where I come in and do leadership development training. I also do image consulting and public speaking work with people.
That's absolutely incredible. Thank you so much, Dr. Zay, for jumping onto the show. I love what you're doing. I love how you're, very outspoken and really calling out issues, especially talking about the state of, Black people in America and things like that, different issues pertaining to Black people. And this is a very cool conversation, an amazing conversation, talking with you about fashion, your perspective on fashion, also talking about how, racism in fashion affects Black people as well. So I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. This was the best conversation I had all day.
Yes, absolutely. Take care. All right. Bye-bye. Hello, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to click the bell for notifications. Also, follow me on my social media platforms and be on the lookout for more interviews to come very soon. Take care, stay healthy, and stay beautiful. Bye bye.